Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Yeah, gorgeous.
What's up, gorgeous?
Yeah.
You come here often?
Sometimes.
Every once in a while?
What about you?
Well, we gotta do a video or two. Hello, YouTube!
What up, YouTube, podcast listeners, all our subscribers, how you doing?
And followers on Instagram, Tumblr, and Facebook. I'm SK.
I'm Nay.
And we're the Psychologists. And in today's episode 7, we are going to start to talk about mental illness and relationships.
Yep.
And I think it's going to be a multi-video series long conversation because there's a lot to unpack in something that's affecting a lot of us right now. Because lately, no matter who I talk to, everyone feels broken, everyone feels on edge, in danger, and unwell. But before we get to how we've lived under number 45, we'll kind of go back a little bit like we always do. So when you think of mental illness and relationships, by the way, this video is for Sunny, big shout out. It was a request for one of my dear past students and now friends to talk about this particular issue. So when you think about mental illness and the many relationships that you were a part of, what comes to mind? How did you talk about it? Did you face it? What was going on?
To my knowledge, I never had other partners who had mental illness. So
and yourself?
You were my first. Myself, I don't consider myself to have a mental illness.
She's one of those people we call neurotypical, and I don't have my little writing tool.
No.
It's okay, but neurotypical is a word for folks that, according to the standards of experts, that classify people into sane and less sane folks are the ones whose brains function properly. And whether or not that's a good or bad thing is up to you to decide, but there is something to be said for someone who hasn't interacted with, the world of psychiatry and the world of psychology and the medical complex when it comes to access to care, medication, and whatever, right? So then you meet me, and what begins to happen?
So I meet you, and you told me that, you had a mental illness, and that you used to have eating disorder and a lot of different things that was going on with you.
Which particular things?
You said you have anxiety and you get panic attacks.
That's right.
And you had depression before and postpartum, and
that I'm in recovery from an eating disorder.
Right.
Yeah, that's plenty. I mean, we don't have to create an infinite list, and lately I've been thinking through perhaps I'm going through complex PTSD as a result of childhood trauma and certain issues in my family. So it's kind of an ongoing conversation anyway about how we cope through life. So then what were some of the difficulties when you first came across my having anxiety or a panic attack or a depressive episode or stuff around food? You could talk about any of that. And then we'll talk about how we've managed.
I found it difficult at first, right? Because I didn't really, I didn't really understand it or really know how to help you deal with it, right? Like I got to a point where I was like, I just want to help, right? I just want to, make you feel better, and I didn't necessarily have the tools at that point or know, what I could do to help you besides like just being next to you or like, just like putting my hand on you, on your leg or whatever, and just kind of like trying to calm you. But I really didn't know, and I had to, between conversations that we had,
which were difficult.
Very difficult, and looking online at different things. And one thing I did learn is that it's not a one size fits all. I remember looking at some things online, and you would send me some links, every now and then. But
ever the academic.
It was, but it would say like if your partner has anxiety or is having a panic attack or whatever, like do these things, right? But then like once I would talk to you about some of those things, you'd be like, well, no, actually, like, I don't like that, you know. So I think it's important to you know, to look into it and to see, you know, what you can do to help and, you know, to make it easier. But you should also still have, you know, like the conversation with your partner and
because
make sure
they are the expert,
right? And
on
make sure
their
that like
life.
you're not just not asking them and just being like, oh, the article said this, let me do that, and then like, you know, during a panic attack is not it's not great and might get you in a lot of trouble.
Right. So I'm thinking about this help narrative that people kind of fall into, where they immediately want to solve the situation or the illness or the symptoms of an illness, and these things, for us at least in the community, part of us are in the disabled community, part of us are in the mentally ill community or whatever. Again, small tangent on the labels that we're using. Of course, these are contested terms and they're not at all connected to any judgment or value in that sense, and people get to call what they are experiencing their own terms, if they so wish, right? So part of me does not like to, you know, name certain things a mental illness, which the psychiatric community deems an illness, like being transgender. To me, that's not a mental illness. And the only reason that causes my dysfunction around that is other people who are cisgender that make our lives difficult. So again, that just kind of shows you how illness in the first place is socially constructed by the powers that be, because they get to decide what is neurotypical and what is neurodivergent. And the second thing I keep thinking about, aside from how you shouldn't just try to constantly solve it as opposed to maybe mitigate it or alleviate some of the symptoms, because we don't necessarily see an end in sight to any of our mental illness. I think it's just something that makes our lives unique to us. So the second thing is like the articles and the information, like where do you go for help? You know, like it's one thing to have your partner try to send you links, which I think people should read on their own and then talk at a specified time over with their partner. But then on the other hand, like even when we've tried to deal with our own stuff, like in the past before I met you, like sometimes certain things are the answer and then they're no longer the answer, and they seem like an answer and you feel like, great, now I'm going to get a handle on this, and then you actually lose the handle on it and the handle flies in the air and there's nothing left, you know, and you're back to spiraling. So so keep in mind that it's kind of, you know, very difficult, I think, to just even like, if you are a very alpha sort of person like me, you know, I just read a BuzzFeed article today about how I'm a mommy with an I, you know, kind of like how I call you daddy. You should call me mommy. Maybe not the first time on camera, but something to consider later tonight. Roger. Shout out to Justine for posting that on my Facebook wall. I forgot what I was talking about because I got distracted by dirty thoughts.
You were talking about the specified time.
Right. Well, no, it's very difficult if you are someone that wants to present a certain image of yourself to a new partner to be, you know, and this large caveat, I'm doing large quotation marks for you podcast listeners, to be the broken person that you are. Again, the narrative of brokenness is very touchy because we're not broken, and yet it's not easy, right, to get up in the morning and like do all the things like life and whatever it requires of you. So so I say I'm broken because I get to name the experience that I'm having, and you don't get to name the experience I'm having and kind of walk around and calling people crazy, calling people broken, and calling people insane or psychotic or any of those things, because like most people don't even understand psychology, and they don't even understand biology, and they don't understand you know, medical terms, and they just throw it around like it's nothing, but it's harmful. So it was difficult to just kind of, you know, appear broken, and I still struggle with that because it's not sexy. And I want to be seen as sexy, and I know everybody out there who cares about that particular thing, and I know not everyone does, like, wants to, you know, put together, right, handle on things. So,
one other thing that I think I've learned along the way is just to, you know, I know you said about the wanting to help, but like I think there's times you can be helpful, right? To like, like to try to alleviate whatever you're dealing with at the time, and like if you say like, I don't know, let's say I'm coming home at a certain time and you're like, I was supposed to do this, like I really can't, like get out and do it or whatever, like, all right, I'll take care of it, like it's really for me just about doing whatever I can to like make things easier for you when you're not having, such a good day, or when you feel panic or you have things going
right,
on.
but I mean, you've like unclenched some in terms of becoming so much more flexible, right? And just handling the things that could really freak me out, even though like they don't freak you out at all. And so it's finding those places. And for you too, like I can then be strong when you are not, or like capable when you don't feel like doing that, and so it's a balance. But I think it's like a work in progress, because like the final thing maybe that I keep thinking about is like you cannot feel what I feel, right? You cannot feel the darkness and the despair and the spiraling that I'm feeling. No one can. And I mean, like other people who go through anxiety and panic attacks and depression can relate to some extent, but like no one has the body and the mind and the trauma and the history that any one of us has, right? So in the beginning, I remember trying to sit through with her through one of my panic attacks in a much more physical way, like having her like enclose me so that she can feel my falling apart kind of, or being very, very panicked, and the heart rate and like the fear and just like this kind of encapsulated feeling, right? To just like, because we have a really special physical bond, and I'm trying not to make that sound sexual, but it's hard to untangle. So I knew that she would, could you just stop staring at me, please. I knew that she would be able to feel some of that, but I guess that's not the way it works for everybody, right? Like not everyone has a way of interacting with their partner that requires that kind of physicality, but because these things, mental illness manifests itself in a very physical way sometimes, is just like really kind of, if it rushes through you and kind of the world goes blank in a sense. So that's one way you can incorporate your partner if you have that kind of bond. The other one we mentioned was already like, articles, a more intellectual connection to it. It's just about kind of information, but that's a very limited thing too. And then the third thing that we talked about was specific to the person, right? Like learning over time as your relationship evolves, how you can alleviate certain things for your partner instead of like thinking it's no big deal. Like remember when I was like, there's no way I can call, and I know people with anxiety will know this is true, like there's no way I can call the bank, the insurance, the whatever, because that gives me a lot of anxiety, not about having to interact with people, but about the repercussions of what they may not be able to help me with and how much worse my situation is going to get, so I don't even want to kind of get into it. So then you couldn't, it was hard for you to believe that, because you love calling representatives and yelling at them over nothing, and like, everyone at Amazon fears the, specter that is Nay calling. Like, we didn't get our pull-ups this week, and I think everyone should quit right now, because tomorrow she's going to call, and I suggest
they shouldn't mark it delivered when it's not delivered.
I agree, and that's like a metaphor for much of our bureaucracies. They shouldn't mark it delivered when it's not delivered. Okay, like, that's a really good one. So, Amazon employees, seize this moment. Now is the time to quit. Nay is calling tomorrow. But yeah, so now you understand that if I ask you to do that, and it actually helps me so much when she does, because I just recognize that it doesn't bug her the way it would me. And so I've had a difficult time letting go of tasks and responsibilities, because you have to establish trust, and like you have to learn how to not control everything, and that's very hard for me. So it's like an ongoing issue. And
I think it's good to, for you to know what each other's strengths are, and weaknesses are, because
what are my strengths?
What are your strengths?
Not my lesbian strength. My human
superpower.
That is a whole other video.
Well, no, your strengths are, taking care of, the kids and, like, getting everything done with them and, like, taking them to the doctor. Like, I take them sometime, but you're so much better in, like, talking to the doctor and, like, knowing what, like, test or whatever. I just feel like, she sent me. Right? Like,
I was sent here as a representative.
Like, I brought the child. And just, like, kind of keeping things in order, You've been, such a
Which, by the
help,
way,
like,
is a kind of symptom of anxious people. They are tremendously capable of multitasking and keeping things in order, because if things are freaking you out, like, every step of the way, you're going to allow space for contingencies and plans D's and E's and F's, and think through all of the variables all of the time, because your brain's firing, like, really, at all of the things that can happen. So, like, people who have anxiety are actually very good at being asked under pressure, like, what you think you should do, unless we're also going through a panic attack. So, like, it's a double-edged sword, right? If I'm panicking, I say I can't be trusted to make a decision, so I ask her, like, can you make a decision right now? I cannot make a decision right now. But, like, if I'm not having a panic attack, because of how my brain works, like, I'm a very decisive person, and the decision will be accurate. It's like it's like going to be a good decision for you.
She's like the measure 100 times and cut once, like I could think of something and, like, you would already have, like, 5 different plans, and then you would pick, like, what's the best plan, and I'm still like, and you're like, nope, this is what we're gonna do. And, like, so, like, when you're, like, when you're not having, panic and anxiety, you, like, execute, and, like, that, that's also, like, a really good strength of yours. And, like, when the kids go to their dad's house and you make sure all their stuff is together and everything is packed, and, like, so, you're very good at, multitasking. You're very good at keeping me on task. Sometimes I am floofy, I get distracted easily.
Sometimes.
And, like, we implemented this thing where, which is a suggestion from you, because when I'm at work, right, you would send me things and then, like, oh, pick up this or do this. And I look at it real quick while I'm at work, but I'm not really, able to, text back at that point, or, like, save it somewhere in my phone or whatever. And then I get off the train, I come home, and you're like, oh, did you get that? And I'm like, oh, yeah.
Right, because, like, the act of texting secures the doing of the task.
So,
according to the rule book.
We now have a white magnetic board on our fridge. And it's become, like, a house favorite.
A magical
the kids
space.
draw in it and leave us little pictures and things, and we leave each other little love notes and, pictures. But
so cheesy.
Its best function, or what we mainly use it for, is so that things we need to buy from the store, or, like, tasks that, need to be done around the house, can be up there, and I can, like, always see it, and then I can put it in my magical apps in my phone,
which freaks me
out.
And that's not how I would do it,
which
because
is pretty
it's just
cool.
Too many
and so
platforms.
Right. So, like, you keep yourself organized, in your head, but, like, I need to see things and, like, have, like, checklists to tick off and know that, like, I'm completing tasks. So I'm just more of, like, I need to see it. I need, to be visual.
Your strengths are being patient and kind and just, like, chill when things happen, because I imagine the worst of things and you imagine the regular things, which people who are neurotypical would imagine. So if the kid is sick and I think that's it, he's going to die from pneumonia, which will inevitably result from the cough that I just heard, and I hit a panic attack, which is what really happens, this is not a lie, you have to be like, he's fine. Because it's just a cough.
And, like, he can, wait a couple of days and we'll see how it does.
Right, and their father is that way too. So between the 2 neurotypical other parents in my life, I have to triangulate, like, a calmer version of events for myself. But it's this constant work, like, And so today, Evan was sick with a cough, and I had to make an executive decision on my own about whether or not to take him to the doctor, and I didn't. But because you weren't picking up and not texting me back and having your life, I had to talk to his father, who is also a neurotypical person and generally calm and, wants to avoid the doctor and all that kind of complication. He was like, no, don't take him, and I agreed. But for the next hour, I was kind of cold, being washed over with panic regarding whether or not I'm the worst mom in the universe or like second to last. And if something would happen to him over the weekend as a result of my decision. So I kind of sat through it and worked through it. And they were right, and he was fine. He didn't need to go to the doctor, at least today. But no matter how many times things go off without a hitch, you still fall into that panic because, that's how mental illness works. It doesn't really care about reality and how things go, okay? So that's all we wanted to say on that. Any kind of, concluding remarks? I wanted to say that, like, our next videos will be first on, like, the history, right, of mental illness in my life, because it's kind of cumulative, and even if a person had something like postpartum, they may not have it now, but it changed their biochemistry and relationship to maybe medication and whatever, right? And the second thing was seeking help, right? So from community to therapy to medication to a combination of it. And then we want to talk about how under this current political climate, under this administration, people are feeling really, really unwell mentally, and it has exacerbated previous traumas for sure, and, making everybody feel incredibly sick. Okay, so any concluding remarks on your part?
I just want to do a little recap. Just remember, if you are the neurotypical person, that, you don't know what it's like to be, in your partner's shoes. And so I just always try to, keep that in mind.
Because you wear high tops and I like flats.
You like my high tops, don't I? Like, I don't catch you in them. Anyway, but, back to what I was saying. So, just, you don't know what they're going through and, or how they're feeling, because, you may not, probably haven't been there. But just, do all the things you can to be able to be there for them, let them know that you love them.
Oh, yeah?
And support them.
Oh, yeah?
I love you very much.
I think we should get married.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, maybe on camera.
All right.
Do you?
Bet.
I do.
I do.
And
anyway.
you get an A. And you get an A. But only if you're gay, which according to my latest Rate My Professor's students' response is the way I grade. So only LGBTQ people get to pass my class. And that's
and
about all.
And the LGBT people will differ with that comment.
Because that's not how any of this works.
Right.
Okay, college is about college, and it's about learning. And we'll see you here next time. Signing off.
Later.